Hello everybody and welcome to the War Room. This one is for this weekend's UFC main event, Alexander Volkov taking on Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Quick tale of the tape to start with. So Volkov is coming in with an impressive record of 34-10. Jairzinho, on the other hand, 12-3, so considerably less experience in mixed martial arts for Rozenstruik. But then when you add his kickboxing record of 76-8 to that, 76-8-1, I mean, 85 kickboxing matches, 76 wins, 64 knockouts. I mean, that's a terrifying stat. This guy is taking people's heads left and right. Same with his mixed martial arts record. You know, out of 12 wins, he's got 11 knockouts. He really is a dangerous individual in the striking range. As is Volkov. The difference is their striking range. They are different ranges. You know, Volkov, he's 6'7", so he's got a 5-inch height advantage. He's got a 2-inch reach advantage, which of course, you know, it doesn't really amount to much. But he is very good at fighting long. You know, even when he fought Stefan Struve at 6'11", he was still able to look like the taller fighter, to pick at him and stay safe, even with a guy that's got a really, really long 84.5-inch reach, I think Struve is. So, you know, you've got to think that Volkov is going to be the bigger and the more difficult fighter to land shots on. Rozenstruik is a very patient fighter, though. And of course, this is over 5 rounds, which means that Rozenstruik, as soon as the first bell goes until right before the last bell goes, as we found out in the Overeem fight, he's lethal. And he only needs one counter shot to catch you and put you out. Now, Volkov is a very good mixed martial artist. You know, he's a decorated champion. He fought around the world. He's fought in M1. He's fought in Bellator. Of course, the UFC Championship is the one that he wants now to add to his collection. But he's hit a couple of individuals recently. Cyril Gane being one of them, and Tom Aspinall being the other. And they've just been a bit too fleet of foot for him, a bit too quick. A bit too in and out, changing the range, and also, you know, having a good, well-rounded game in Tom Aspinall. I don't think there's the same kind of possibility with Rozenstruik. I think Volkov knows that this is going to be a kickboxing match for as long as he wants it to be. Now, I'm not putting it past Volkov to try and take this fight to the floor, but what I will say as a counter to that is that Rozenstruik's takedown defense is 75%. Although he lost to Curtis Blades, he stopped half of his takedowns, which, in my opinion, is very impressive. He is a difficult person to take down. Very, very solid on his feet. Very difficult to budge. Very good at fighting for underhooks and getting good head position. And, of course, the head position battle is going to be easier to win for him because he's the shorter man. But at the same time, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if Volkov decides to play it safe, closes him down against the fence pretty quickly, you know, lands a couple of clinch knees, and then looks for some trip and reap takedowns. If it hits the floor, that's where Volkov is going to look very strong, just because of his experience and his size. You know, we don't really talk too much about his ground game, but it's not that it's not there. He just chooses not to use it. Rozenstruik, of course, you know, has a game that is heavily stacked in kickboxing, although he does have grappling in his background. So, as far as their techniques go, now, if I'm Volkov, I want to keep this guy at a distance as much as I can. So I'm working on my straight punches, my jabs and crosses, and my front kicks to the midsection, which, you know, we saw him use that really well against Walt Harris. You know, damaged him with those body shots, you know, took the fight out of him. And then with Overeem, we saw, although he was pressuring, Overeem wasn't able to really get to him. It was pressure behind long punches, but long punches that were still too far away from Overeem to get around. And this is the thing with Rozenstruik. Yes, he's a great striker, but if he can't land his counter shots, that's a different thing altogether. And what we know about Rozenstruik is that, of course, his counter left hook is a problem. You know, we saw that against Arlovsky. But counter hooks aren't very easy to land on tall people. You know, you want some about the same height as you, so as they move into your range, you can move back and check it. If you're looking to check them with a counter hook as they're moving forward and they've got really long arms, they might crack you with a straight right before your punch even lands. And these are the issues that Rozenstruik's got to negotiate, as well as the front kicks to the midsection. If I'm Rozenstruik, I'm looking to slip and get past those shots, and then I'm in a closer range. that's when I'm working my overhands and my left hooks and my low kicks. And I am chopping that lead leg of Volkov to bits because, of course, he's a tall guy. If I can take away some of his movement, it's going to be easier for me to get in and out. It also makes it more difficult for Volkov to step on that lead leg to throw his straight punches if it is damaged. So with the power that Rozenstruik's got in his hands and his feet, I think that would be a real smart investment. Work on that lead leg, do damage to it, and then start throwing bombs over the top. And to be patient, to work into the later rounds is going to be good for Volkov as well. Is going to be good for Rozenstruik as well. Volkov is playing a dangerous game all the time. And in the Derek Lewis fight, we saw him play a dangerous game very well for the best part of 3 rounds until Derek Lewis threw that bomb over the top. Lewis isn't the most accurate or technical of strikers, but he does have power. Rozenstruik is a technical and accurate fighter, and he has power. So I would say if Derek Lewis can do it at some point in 3 rounds, Rozenstruik can definitely do it at some point in 5 rounds. Like, the right hand over the top I feel like is going to be key to him, especially if he's already weak in that lead leg. It's going to make it difficult for Volkov to get away from. But what we might find, very similar to when Rozenstruik has fought good strikers. Like, I mean, the Cyril Gam fight, Cyril wasn't there to be touched. He was in and out. He was too quick on his feet. But then Overeem was constantly in motion, very difficult to pin down. And what was it? 4 seconds before the end of the fight in the 5th round, and he cracked him with a shot that about split his face in two. As long as he's patient in this one and he doesn't get frustrated by getting eaten up on the outside by Volkov's picking techniques, I think he can withstand the majority of what Volkov is going to do to him. Not necessarily because Volkov doesn't have power, because of course he does. He is a dangerous individual, does have heavy hands, has got some good stoppages on his record. I mean, that stoppage of Overeem, the Walt Harris body kick, of course. But I feel like Rozenstruik's defense and his awareness of the striking range is going to keep him safe. And I think if he's able to defend those strikes, then he can get close and start landing bombs. But if Volkov comes in shape, and if he comes in to stay on his toes and he doesn't take too much damage to that lead leg, he might be able to just like coast this one to a decision and never get close enough for Rozenstruik to crack him. I mean, he is in need of a win, Volkov, because that arm lock against Tom Aspinall has really slowed his progress down towards the belt. Of course, the Cyril Gam fight did as well, but that was right up at the top of the division, and that was a 5-round decision that he lost there. Tom Aspinall blasted through him. He didn't land a good shot on Aspinall, and he couldn't stop his takedown when he decided to put him on the floor. This is going to be a different fight. This is going to be a far more steady, slow-paced fight. Rozenstruik doesn't blitz forward like a crazy man. He's patient, he walks people down, and he plays kickboxing with them. And that slow, steady pace is where Volkov can keep backing up and finding angles and jabbing him and backing up. Front kick. Keep working him as he's moving into range and then moving out of range before it becomes Rozenstruik's range. Like, think about it. You've got, of course, there's a 2-inch reach advantage, which is not a great deal. But with Volkov being 5 inches taller and most of that height being in his legs, Rozenstruik might constantly find himself walking onto that front kick. So before he even gets into a range where he can land, he's already been jammed and stopped. Then Volkov moves away. These are problems that could see him having all the way through the night. It's just, this is 25 minutes. Which means that there's a lot of time for Rozenstruik to get around that lead leg, get around those straight punches, and get close to him. And think about this. If Volkov lands a good front kick to the midsection of Rozenstruik and he backs up and he looks like he's hurt, that's when Volkov closes into close range and starts working his hooks and his uppercuts and his knees. Even if he gets that clinch, starts throwing knees, Rozenstruik with those short shots around the sides of the tie clinch or up the centre, they might be enough to take his legs away as well. Is there anything I've not talked about on UFC stats? So, Rozenstruik has got a lower striking output than Volkov. Patience. But he is accurate. He does land shots, but then Volkov's more accurate. But that's because he kind of picks at his opponents. He doesn't really throw everything into them. Whereas Rozenstruik, he tests. Sometimes he does throw a big shot and it doesn't land. Sometimes he'll throw a couple of shots to line up his big shot, which again, because those a couple of initial shots were a setup, they count negatively towards his striking accuracy, but positively towards his finishing capabilities. Volkov needs to land a lot more to do the same kind of damage that Rozenstruik does. And Volkov could do with doing a variety of damage across the body, working the legs, working the body, obviously attacking the head. Whereas Rozenstruik, I think he could have a far more straightforward game plan of smash the hell out of that lead leg and then throw bombs over the top and around the sides. He has to close range down, but not get too close where he's going to get clinched. Because again, I do see Volkov being able to work inside and outside reaps and trips, get those long arms around a body lock and pull his hips in and start to trip him. That could be a real interesting range, and it'd be interesting to see how Rozenstruik does deal with that. But as I said, his takedown defense has been impressive so far, and Volkov is not the most aggressive of grapplers. It's an interesting one for the heavyweight division as well, because one of these guys will continue moving back towards the belt. I feel like Rozenstruik is just kind of starting in his career. I mean, he's had 15 fights. Volkov's had 44 fights. He's a lot further along in his career. So that Volkov is going to improve in mixed martial arts terms incrementally in the next, I don't know how long is he going to stay fighting for. I mean, they're around the same age. They're about 6 months in it. But of course, Biggie Boy spent a lot of time kickboxing, which you have to be tweaking and changing that in order to cross over to mixed martial arts. With him having that power and that skill, he's got decent takedown defense. And with 15 fights in, he's going to continue to improve. So that we don't know if he's going to bring new skills to the table in this. Whereas with Volkov, I kind of feel like the version that we know is the version that we're going to get. And he's either going to outpoint him and wear him down and maybe get a TKO, but most likely beat him by decision. Or he's going to be doing really well until he gets cracked with a big shot and he finds himself waking up with the referee over him. I'm looking forward to it. I love a good clash of heavyweights. I like the fact that there's one guy that's tall and rangy and doesn't have the same kind of power as the guy that's a bit shorter and a bit more powerful. And the guy with loads of kickboxing striking experience is the one that is working against the physical attributes. If you take the physical attributes of Volkov and you give them to Rozenstruik with his kickboxing experience, that's an easy one for me. Because he's got everything on his side. The fact that Volkov's got the MMA experience and the height and reach, that's what makes it challenging for Biggie Boy. And I think both of these guys are going to want to kickbox, which makes it even more interesting. All right, enjoy these fights, and I'll see you next time.